Now we're going to hear from Mara Ricoy. She's a birth educator, specialist in obstetric violence, an activist, radical feminist, writer, poet, interpreter, and founder of the Roses Revolution movement. She is a survivor of sexual abuse. Mara will talk about the current appropriation of women's spaces and definitions, including our fight for abortion rights and how this is affecting birth. Abortion have always been the ultimate power to control women. And the title of Mara's talk is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Thank you so much, Mara, and over to you.
So the invasion of the body snatchers, it will be explained in a minute. The first thing I have to say is that my background is, as it's been mentioned, on birth. When I was invited to speak, I was told to, or it was a confusion whether I'm a specialist in abortion rights. I am not, but I was trying to, when I spoke at a recent conference, I was trying to send a message to the States, because I was shocked about the fact that we're talking about losing rights in terms of abortion. So the first thing that I was thinking when I was thinking about abortion is like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe that we are there. I can't believe pretty much none of what's going on. So sometimes it's a feeling of being in a movie. So hence the reason for the title of my presentation. Sometimes it feels like somebody's taking over womanhood, and this is what it's about. I also thought of a question that Virginia Woolf posed to an audience once. Is, have you any notion how many books are written about women in the course of 1 year? Have you any notion how many are written by men? Are you aware that you are perhaps the most discussed animal in the universe? And then the other question from her as well, why are women so much more interesting to men than men are to women? As someone that has worked with birth for over a decade, I don't think, I have no doubt, and I have written 3 books about the topic, I have no doubt that the interest is because of our power. And I think that our power is the decision of whether to have babies or not. It's that simple. It's like we have this power of creating the future of humankind, of rejecting it, birthing, not birthing. This is a great, great power, in my view, whether it's by electing it or rejecting it. But I think this is what is behind a lot of the discussion. And I think it has become very apparent and very obvious to everybody else that this is the thing. So that's my reply to Virginia Woolf. Of course, it could be thousands of them, but that's my particular one at this particular moment when I think of that sentence. This is something that I thought about today. If you ask in Spain who is one of the best-selling women authors, it's actually 3 men. This is something that it was quite shocking to me when I discovered the discussion, because it was almost presented as some funny joke. It's like Carmen Mola, this woman that everybody wanted to know who was she. She was writing books. Apparently they were very popular in Spain, happened to be 3 men. And of course, the idea, if you discuss why are 3 men faking to be 1 woman writing books, it's always like, well, men can fake to be a woman. Why not? They fake, the women fake being men. And I decided to put Gentleman Jack here, not looking very amused by that concept. So we're going to look at also why this equivalence that we're constantly working on about the fact of, well, it's exactly the same, it's exactly the same when women pretend to be men or when men pretend to be women. It's exactly the same when women want to transition than when men want to transition. No, it's not. No, it's not. And I hate the idea that we are actually discussing this as if we were in some neutral, wonderful world where nothing happens and nobody's oppressed. And, it's absolutely surreal to think that the parameters are exactly the same. And now we want to erase them further. Then I thought, well, no, it's not the same, because as Virginia Woolf put it, for most of the history, Anonymous was a woman. So I just give you a couple of examples. It's lots of examples of women that wrote under pseudonyms and of male names, or they wrote as anonymous because we all know why. It was not acceptable for women to write, no, and it won't be considered the same. Movies about women with women are not interested. They're not interesting. They're women's movies. They are books about women. It's like we're not half of the humanity. We're, this sort of different branch. No, this is another thing that I'm trying to build up the fact that for me, the appropriation of women by men is nothing new. This is something I had an issue with in Spain, which was that there was tons of books coming through about how to be a mother, how does it feel to be a mother, and all these different things, written by men. And I have always found absolutely fascinating the arrogance involved. So one of them is How to Be a Mom Before and After, written by 3 doctors, because of course there's also a pathology. The pathology of our bodies is a different topic, but that's always there. If you're a doctor, if you're a nutritionist, if you're a pediatrician, you can tell mothers what to do. I mean, about everything. So these are a few examples that I found. Then we come to my personal theory of the 1980s were very, very scary, but we didn't see it. We were presented with this as cute. It was lots of posters. I don't know if you remember, but it was lots of posters of men with babies, because, it was something that was less done, and it was a way of thinking. I think we all assumed that it was egalitarian, men looking after babies, finally, about time. But, these things always backfire. We know that patriarchy, they always come from a different angle and hit us in the face. So I always think of those posters that they were back then, the movies, 3 Men and a Baby was quite famous in 1987. And then what we have is this other news from the Mirror, in this case, saying the first gay dads, triplets, to make history with 3 parents on birth certificates. So we come to take over completely these 3 men and a baby. What they have done is that they have exploited a woman to have a baby by surrogacy. And then we have further developments, and going a bit farther with the whole topic by having another news that says 2 men, a womb, and a baby boy make a modern family. So we are now a womb. This is the thing. It's very quickly, for me, it's like the transition that I see is being done with eradicating the actual woman from the picture. This is what we're doing, and we are now vessels. That's what we are. The thing that we were avoiding for so long, that's what we are now. So 2 men, a woman, a baby. I replied to that tweet by saying, why not saying 2 men, a womb, and a product? Because, since we are talking in these terms, that will be a lot quicker for the, the euphemisms. And I think there is a lot of euphemisms around patriarchy that protects patriarchy from seeing themselves in the mirror of feminism, that is saying, no, this is disgusting, this is exploitation, this is what you're doing to us, no? So we need lots of euphemisms. And now we have lots of glitter on top of everything, and lots of, alterations of reality and language. So exploitation through euphemisms is my way of looking at it. And then what that allows is to say crazy things. And I chosen this headline in Spanish, which I will translate in a second, because to me it's like, how far can you get to bend truth? So we have few pictures. One is of a Black woman birthing at the bottom on the right, birthing for these men that they are waiting there. So she's the surrogate mother. Then the other picture of the baby on the floor, which I don't even understand. And then there's an advert of an heterosexual couple waiting for this belly. I have to say that the pictures of bellies I've been complaining for years, because I found that they were very dehumanizing to present constantly just a pregnant belly, no head, and so on. But this is a separate campaign I have. Now, the headline is because during the Ukraine war, there was still going, but there was a moment specifically that a lot of the headlines in Spain were about romanticized stories of parents, they call them, that they have bought a baby or they have got a baby through surrogacy in the Ukraine, and they were the heroes, that they were trying to get this baby that belonged to them into Spain, into safety. So it was a lot of articles like that. So in these particular headlines, what it says is, the woman pregnant with my child has promised us that she will look after it as if it was hers. Now, how insane is this? Yeah, so just talking about somebody has the baby that's actually yours, she's carrying this baby, and then she's promised to look after it as if it was yours. So we're constantly changing that. It's nothing new. This is not only pertaining to the discussions we're having nowadays around gender ideology. I think it happened before. I think we weren't maybe when we weren't looking at it. Right, so this is a very popular person in Spain, even South America. I think they will know. He's a guy that was born into celebrity, having famous parents, and he's one of the most famous pop singers in Spain. Now, in 1987, in a magazine, he was saying, "I will be willing to become pregnant." Then later on in the 90s, he had one of the most talked about covers of a magazine where he say, "I want to be a mother." Now we go to the actual present, or some years ago, and he had become the father of 4 children with surrogacy. He's now immersed in a very well-known legal battle, because apparently they have a discussion that he has a male partner, and they're having a discussion about which set of kids belongs to who, or something along the lines. I haven't followed, but in any case, what I'm trying to say is that this fantasy, this uterus envy that has never been talked about, it has always been there, and it's evolving. Yeah, so it's nothing new to me. Now, this is about, I'm making a bit of a jump here, but what I'm trying to go with this is that the discussion of appropriating women's bodies and appropriating who we are, and then being, as I said, as a sort of invasion of body snatchers taking over and then speaking for ourselves, which is the fear. The way I see it is that men have always controlled our decisions, our bodies, our right to decide, our decisions on abortions and so on. What we're having now is that men are infiltrating that discussion. Men are the ones now being pregnant, and they're going as far as saying that they are the ones fighting for abortion rights. Now, this is a tweet I found when we went to that picnic in Glasgow that I mentioned to Sally before we started. And immediately we have some trans activists saying that while gender critical activists were busy having lunch at Glasgow Green, we were busy united as cis and trans people in campaigning for abortion rights outside the US consulate, blah, blah, blah. So they care more than we care about abortion rights. Yeah? Well, basically that's a video of me saying to be careful, because the trans activists are now suggesting that gender critical are against abortion. So, you know, it was quite funny, because I thought they are saying that we are having a picnic like there's no care in the world, while in reality I was actually speaking at that picnic precisely about how we are accused of being against abortion rights, which is preposterous, of course. So not only we are no longer the ones having the abortions, being raped and all these different issues, we're not even defending that. You know, it's just, it's puzzling. This infiltration is happening in different layers. So for example, in this week in Spain, it's been talked about a lot that Spain has been very progressive because now we're gonna have a menstrual leave. But, you know, some of us are a bit skeptical because this government hasn't done that many great things for women, so we don't know exactly what is this about. However, the first thing that I saw yesterday was in a discussion in television about the menstrual leave, what we have is a trans woman, a man. Then I have also seen that, you know, I was thinking about the painting or the picture from Barbara Kruger, which I have placed on the left, where she says 77% of anti-abortion leaders are men, 100% of them will never be pregnant. That was quite a strong argument at the end of the 80s. But what we have now is that we can't say that, because You know, there is this argument that, well, men are pregnant too, which is a very kind of confused layer of reality, where I have realized that a lot of society doesn't even understand exactly what it means. And we have the university in Glasgow recently not teaching midwives, future midwives, how to catheterize a man for the purpose of inclusivity during childbirth. So this is this is the bizarre situation that we're all enduring. We also have specific antenatal classes for trans parents and so on. So and of course now we have Mother's Day being portrayed by a trans father who actually, you know, what I see there is the perfect representation for the ideas of men. This is a biological woman, and I hate to say it in this sense, but this is a biological woman that now can look like a man, so men can endure this fantasy that actually men can get pregnant, and that's what they are promoting, regardless that there is no possibility. They are talking about womb transplants and things like that, you know. So I saw this today. Trans women can teach you more about femininity than cis women can any day of the week. That's not a challenge, it's an invitation. I replied to that is true. And it's true purely because if we're talking about femininity, we're talking about gender ideology and how a woman should be like. Yes, you can, because you are the men that invented that rubbish for us to be oppressed with. The issue is that you still don't have a clue about womanhood, and yet, you know, they're trying to take over. And this is the important difference. So let's have a look at what womanhood means then. So womanhood in this respect means things like, for example, few cases, Savita's case, Alapanavar, I think is the surname. She was in Ireland, and because of the heavy laws about, you know, not having an abortion when she died of sepsis. She had a terrible death because the baby that was non-viable and was producing a sepsis in her body was the most important thing. She was seen as a vessel, and therefore, you know, she was redundant in this discussion. She knew she was very ill. She was begging for an abortion, and she couldn't have one, so she died. And then we have the case in Poland similarly, and we have, of course, stories of, you know, in El Salvador and putting women in jail for having a miscarriage. So we're not even talking about making the decision of having an abortion, which should be a right for all women, but this is womanhood. This is the part that we endure as women in our bodies. This is it. This is not a disguise. This is not something you can put. This is not lipstick and high heels. You know, this affects all of us women, regardless. So I think it's extremely important to make those concepts clear, because what I'm coming to realize these days is that double truth that is being played constantly against us. So for example, in Spain, when this thing about the menstrual leave was presented recently, it was a lot of people going backwards and forwards with the concepts, you know. So we have one of the people in the government saying, you see, if men had a period, you know, things would be different. And then everybody went against him. I was like, oh, I thought you said that men can have periods. So we really have to push for that double truth not to be acceptable, because it cannot be that, you know, sometimes women are the women, sometimes women are not women, sometimes trans women are more women than women. All of that cannot coexist. So I am now pushing for, let's stick to one of them, which one is going to be, because it's still used politically in many ways and in many forms, this kind of constant game of altering reality, changing words as we please. So we should really hold them accountant for that. If you say woman here, you cannot say trans woman here for the same purpose. And I think that's very, very important. I think that we, you know, that can never be accepted. We have to actually call them transphobic then. It's like, which one is going to be? If you're saying that men cannot menstruate in this particular occasion, how can you say it in the other one? You know, so I think we need to really think about that consistently. this is my conclusion with all this, is defending ourselves from the appropriation of our narrative experiences, human rights, bodies, choices, etc., is labeled as misandry, hate, transphobic, taking over womanhood and women's rights, an all recurrent nightmare. I don't think this is new. I don't think it's, I just personally think that the frame for me is to understand it as a defense, and as understanding that the so-called freedom that people are reclaiming can never happen at the expense of our freedom. That's my bottom line.